Good day everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I will be talking about fans configuration in your UEFI or BIOS. As many of you have actually asked me this question, what's the two function for, which is DC and PWM. Now, before I dig into it, let's have some orientation about the fan itself. As you know that in the market, there are two types of fan. While we are building our PCs, we often purchase aftermarket fans, either from companies like Arctic, Noctua, or EK, or even Fantex. Now, be it is a 3-pin or 4-pin connector at the end of your fan, you can connect this to your motherboard, not a problem. On your right, as you can see, this is actually a 3-pin fan. This is a 4-pin fan. Just make sure that when you plug your fan connector into the motherboard itself, make sure that you don't use too much force. In fact, there's only one direction. Just take note on the grooving. As you can see on the 3-pin, the grooving is over here, and the 4-pin, the grooving is over here. Match with your motherboard, so you will slot only one way. Now, a question coming from my viewers and subscribers, or even through email, they often question me that, can I control the RPM, be it it's a 4-pin or a 3-pin? The answer is yes, but either of these pins here, right, they have different method of controlling the RPM. Before I show you live, let's have some understanding on how the pins are laid out. This is actually the printout. This is the 3-pin header, or should I say the connector. This is the 4-pin connectors. Be it 3-pin or 4-pin, pin 1, pin 2, pin 3 is of the same layout. First pin is negative, second pin is positive, and third pin is the RPM sensor. Both 3-pin and 4-pin connectors have this third pin, whereby when it runs at that speed, it will send a signal to your motherboard, telling your motherboard, hey look, this is the speed that I'm running. Let me just show you on the UEFI. As you can see here, the detection over here, the RPMs, is coming from the third pin of your connector, which is this. For pin 4, this will only happen on a 4-pin connector, whereby the 4th pin is in fact the RPM controller. It allows the motherboard itself, over here, to send a signal telling the fan to run at which speed. Please take note that for pin 4, the RPM controller, it will only happen on a 4-pin connector and not a 3-pin connector. You might be asking, if the 3-pin does not have a 4th pin, how am I going to control the RPM? I will show you right now. Looking at the setup of my system here, this is actually my test system. This is the fan connected to CPU 2, and this is actually the voltage that is drawing. As you can see here, right? Let me just show you. See, it's of a daisy chain. So this voltage is telling me how much is being drawn from the motherboard itself to provide the fans. Back to the BIOS. As you can see here, my fan 1, CPU fan 1 and CPU fan 2 is connected. It shows the RPM. I've deliberately dismantled all the rest of the fan just to show you. For CPU fan 1, in fact, it's my radiator fans. They are running at full speed. And this is the fan that I will be illustrating to you. I will start off with a 4-pin connector, which is this, of a fan. This has the controller, or should I say the RPM controller itself. Let me just adjust this. Now, while I'm conducting the test, take note on the voltage and the fan changes, the blade itself. So this is actually on PWM. Now, on my BIOS, if I'm going to set this, see, this is actually PWM mode. If I'm going to set this to full, take a look at the voltage itself and take a look at the blade. When I set to full, the voltage is the same. The fan blade will change and will spin at full speed. If I'm going to change to standard, look at the fan blade, it will drop and the voltage have not changed. So this is the function of the 4-pin PWM connector. It allows the motherboard to tell the fan to spin at which RPM. Just to further illustrate, if I am going to set to full, see, the fan blade changes direction, changes the speed, the voltage remains the same. And for the RPM, just to show you, see, it's running on full speed. CPU fan 2. And if I'm going to change it to, let's say, standard mode, the voltage remains the same. The blade will change a bit. Okay, the rotation will change. The voltage will remain, and the RPM, instead of full, see, it drops. This is the function of the 4-pin PWM fan. Now, assuming that this fan is in fact a 3-pin fan, so I'm going to set it to DC mode. Oh, let me just set it to full speed first. Now, if I'm going to set to DC mode, look at the voltage, what happened. Assuming it's a 3-pin fan, not a 4-pin fan. So on a 3-pin itself, as I mentioned to you, it makes use of voltage regulator. So if I am going to set this DC mode and to set this to silent, consistently, it will run at this voltage. It will pump down to the lowest voltage, as in silent mode. So your fan will keep running on this voltage. Just to show you the RPM itself. See, this is the lowest. Then if I am to set to another mode, let's say from silence to standard, or maybe I should put performance, look at the voltage. It goes up and it controls the fan blade from spinning. It controls the fan blade to spin. See the voltage? It changes. And this, the RPM itself, it raises. And if I were to set it full speed, look at the voltage again. I'm going to set full speed. See? And the fan blade rotation change. It's running on full speed and full voltage. And on the RPM itself, it's running on full speed. So there you have it. In fact, I've actually explained to you. If you still do not understand what I'm trying to tell you, you can rewind this video and have a look. This has illustrated my point on a 3-pin and a 4-pin fan using DC mode and PWM mode. And if you were to ask me which mode would I prefer to use, I would definitely purchase a fan that has a 4-pin connector that runs on PWM instead of DC. Reason being, right, consistently it's running on an 11.9 or 12 volt voltage, and having the motherboard to send the signal to the fan to run at that RPM. Else for 3-pin fans, right, the thing is that it makes use of more work on the motherboard itself, whereby it have to step down the voltage to provide the current to the fan and to run at that specific RPM. Another thing I would like to point out is that in long run, if you were to run the fan through the voltage regulator instead of PWM itself, right, it's going to be bad for the fan. Reason being, the fan motor is taking irregular voltage, so it goes up and down. So at times it will just wear and tear. So it's advisable that if you are getting any fans, make sure you get a PWM fan with 4-pin connectors. Alright guys, there you have it. I hope I did explain to you what's the difference between a 4-pin connector and a 3-pin connector of a fan, and to make use of the PWM mode and the DC mode. Do remember that for 4-pin PWM fans, make sure you use PWM mode in your motherboard, UEFI or BIOS. And for 3-pin, make sure to make use of DC mode. For those of you who are actually new to my channel, welcome. And if you like my content, do remember to click on subscribe and to hit on the notification bell button. Now, just a short notice, I will be away for a while and I'll be doing different modes on the case that I've just built and some other experimental on my O11D Mini. Till then, take good care of yourself, stay safe, take care, goodbye.